So good morning to everyone. My name is Fran and I will be your MC for today. I would like to welcome everyone to the first webinar of the ASEAN Energy and Utility Digital Week. So today we will be discussed under the topic of ASEAN Renewable Energy Outlook. So this webinar is organized by the Joyce Graduate School of Energy and Environment, King Mongkut University Technologies, Thonburi, together with Informa Markets in Thailand, and powered by ASEAN Sustainable Energy Week 2021 or ASEW, the ASEAN largest international conference and exhibitions on the renewable energy, environmental, energy efficiency, and electric vehicles, which will be held on 14 to 16 of October 2021 at Bangkok, Thailand. So this session, we bring together leading experts, academics, policymakers, and entrepreneurs in the energy community to share their views on the current issue and the renewable energy outlook for ASEAN. So before we start, I would like to thank you to the sponsor of this webinar. We have FEMA for the diamond sponsor. We have Beverly for the gold sponsor. Jinko Solar, Longi, LE Top Sun, and Cell and Tear for the silver sponsor. So next, I would like to have a quickly mention on the webinar's housekeeping rules. So on your screen, you will see, so in this screen, so you will see on your bottom right corner that there is the webinar assistant. Once you click there, you will see the 3 tabs, and you can have the live discussion between the audience. You can click at the chat tab and you can start into chat. If you have to, if you would like to ask any question to our speaker, please go on to the question tabs and don't forget to mention our speaker name before you type on the questions. And our moderator will bring it up during the Q&A at the end of the sessions. So if there is any problems or you need our assistance, so you need to send your request into the help tab. So now let me introduce to our moderator for today, Dr. Wirawat. Dr. Wirawat, he has over 25 years of experience in energy and environment program development in many organizations in both locally and internationally. In the area of energy security, low carbon strategies, clean and renewable energy, energy efficiency, regional connectivities, among others. So Dr. Wirawat, good morning. I would like to pass this floor to you. Thank you. Dr. Wirawat, I think you are on mute.
Do you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you perfectly. Thank you.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. I think this is a timely, even that perhaps the TICSI and KMUTT trying to organize. The topic is quite up to date, and we have a very, prestigious expert and honorable expert from many countries to join. So without any further ado, to start with, I would like to invite Dr. Nuki, Akir Uttama, our ASEAN Center for Energy Executive Director, to please give the welcome remark. Mr. Nuki, please.
Thank you very much, Dr. Wirawat. I think today is a very great pleasure for me to be here, joining the very prestigious ASEAN Energy and Utilities Week 2021. Again, I'd like to convey a good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to colleagues around the globe, colleagues from ASEAN, and also Dr. Nitus Paraponitiput, Professor Bandit Pungtamasan, and also Professor Dr. Sunirat Fugoda as the Director of Joint Graduate School of Energy and Environment. Ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of the ASEAN Center for Energy, it is my pleasure to open this special talk titled The ASEAN Renewable Energy Outlook. I wish to express my appreciation and thanks to the Professor Dr. Sunirat Fugoda for the kind invitation and the Joint Graduate School of Energy and Environment of King Mongkut University of Technology Thonburi for hosting this event. ASEAN as the emerging economic community highly regards the role of renewable energy in strengthening the regional energy security, access, affordability, and sustainability. We all know, in fact, as reflected in the ASEAN Plan of Action for Energy Cooperation, or in short, we call it APAC, the region is committed to achieve 23% renewable energy share by 2025. And to realizing this target, the ASEAN needs approximately more than 360 billion US dollars in power sector alone. And it is also noted in the 6th ASEAN Energy Outlook, or AO6. And above this, more incentives are needed to build a sustainable ecosystem, such as manufacturing and capacity building, to drive down the cost of renewable. Although a few of ASEAN member states show significant progress in RE penetration, such as Vietnam, yet in other member states, there is still a significant gap between policies and investor needs, which can increase the investment risk and eventually hinders the RE development. So to identify the gap, first we must understand the outlook of RE development based on the current policies and target. Whether is it sufficient or is it like? As later will be explained in my speech, in ASEAN case, the current policies need to be enhanced time to time to achieve the regional target. ASEAN urged to step up its decarbonization effort, starting from the implementation of cleaner coal technology, of oil fossil fuel power plant with RE, and the extension of ASEAN Power Grid, or APG, to absorb more RE in the region. The special talk is an important opportunity where all key stakeholders, both from government and private entities, can be in the same room and find the solution together. I hope the discussion will not only provide insight, but also could create renewable energy initiative, and hence could bring impactful contribution to ASEAN economic community. So I hope that we can have a very fruitful discussion. Thank you very much again for this opportunity. Stay safe and stay healthy. Back to you, Dr. Wira. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Ratanuki. Thank you for your very informative and up-to-date speech to open up this prestigious meeting today. Oh yes, I think we recognize that we have talked about your AOE just now, that the energy sector is crucial to address our shared climate goal, right, and commitment in reducing the emission through the transformation of the energy system. Of course, according to each country, national planning and priority, among 10 countries, where deployment of renewable energies and clean energy technology is the name of the game toward, like you said, environmental, social, economic, sustainable development path. So with that, to learn more on ASEAN, perspective, and once again, I would like to invite Dr. Nuki for your brief special talk on ASEAN renewable energy status on the future and the role of energy transformation. I think I understand you have PowerPoint or not. If yes or no, just please move on. Mr. Nuki, I'd like to allow you to give a bit of special talk before we start the Q&A.
Yeah, thanks again, Dr. Wirawat. I do have some slides to show. I hope that you can all see the slides. The title is the ASEAN Renewable Energy Status, Future Trend, and also the role of energy transformation. As mentioned by Dr. Wirawat, it is important for us to understand the landscape of energy status and where we're going forward on the future direction of the energy supply and demand. So a bit current status that energy consumption and supply in Southeast Asia, we have more than 600 million population. I think one of the biggest in the world. And likely we do have almost 90% electrification ratio. And that's, of course, will lead to a lot of energy supply, which is currently reached more than 662 million ton oil of equivalent. While it's on the energy consumption side, we reached almost 400,000 kiloton oil equivalent. And apart from that, it is based on the historical data, we achieved such a tremendous improvement. The energy demand itself increased 50% for the last 15 years. And most of those, I think, caused by the urban population, which is increased more than threefold for the last 20 years. I think something related between the urbanization as well as the increasing of the energy demand. So as I previously mentioned in the opening, that in ASEAN, we do have the ASEAN Plan of Action for Energy Cooperation, or we call it the APAC. APAC is the backbone energy activities, which is agreed upon by the 10 member states. Mostly is aspirational target, but looking at those targets, we can realizing how important the energy sector in the region and what will be the target of the energy supply, and of course, the target in terms of the demand perspective in all of the 10 member states. So we have a 7 program area. We call it the ASEAN Power Grid, to expand regional multilateral electricity trading and strengthen the grid resilience and modernization. This ASEAN Power Grid have been talking around 20 years, but luckily in the last couple of years, we already achieved such a tremendous target, which Laos, Thailand, Malaysia being connected. And currently we've been discussing on the possibilities of Singapore to be connected as well. Apart from the APG, we have the Trans-ASEAN Gas Pipeline, and then also clean coal technology is part of the decarbonization activities. We try to approach some more cleaner activities in the coal energy supply. The 4th program area, we call it the energy efficiency and conservation. The 5th one, the one that we talk later today, is the renewable energy. We have an aspirational target for the RE, which is to increase the share of RE to 23% in total primary energy supply. And amongst that, we need to increase 35% installed power capacity in the same year in 2025. So it is such aspirational target that we have to go forward together to achieve the target that we already agree on last year. The 6th program area, we call it the regional energy policy and planning, to advance energy policy and planning to accelerate the regional energy transition and resilience. And the last one is the civilian nuclear energy. So the ASEAN Plan of Action for Energy Cooperation, or APAC, also have a new team. Basically, we maintain the previous team in the first phase, but we add one sub-team. The previous main theme is the enhancing energy connectivity and market integration in ASEAN to achieve energy security, accessibility, affordability, and sustainability for all, as previously Dr. Wirawan also mentioned. I think this one is important for us to bring along the energy issues forward, but not left behind the access of the energy, of course, the affordability to purchase the energy, and we have to provide sustainable energy supply. Over there, we also add one sub-theme, we call it the accelerating energy transition and strengthening resilience through greater innovation and cooperation. These keywords is important to achieve such RE target. We have to go through the energy transition, and we need to accelerate those into some activities, some technology introduction, as well as, of course, involvement on the business sectors. Focusing on the RE, we have it in the program area number 5. We have 6 outcome-based strategies and 16 action plan. The first outcome-based strategies is to advance RE policy and decarbonization pathway. Second one is to conduct high-level policy dialogue. And the third one, to enhance RE research and development. I think research and development, one of the most important things that need to be really accelerated in the region. We don't want to somehow just accepting the technology coming from abroad, beyond ASEAN, but we need to have our own technology within our member states. And the OPS number 4 is to promote RE financing schemes and mechanism. I think one of the bottleneck on improving or increasing the share of RE is the financial issues. And one quite important things that we need to also to accelerate and focus on is the OPS number 5, which is to support biofuel and bioenergy development. Since Southeast Asia mainly located in the tropical hemisphere, therefore we are rich on the biosource, and it is quite important for us to put this biofuel and bioenergy development somehow in the front line of the energy transition. And the 6th OPS is the enhanced RE information and training center. So there are some gaps based on our study last year on the AO6 on achieving such targets in combination between the baseline, the targeted scenarios, and the APAEC scenarios. So targeted scenarios merely based on the PDP that's being agreed upon of each member state, and we put it in the models. And over there we try to compare with the APAEC target scenarios. If you can see on the left graph, the APAEC target scenarios in 2025, we need to achieve 33%. But when we're looking at the PDP, the current PDP before, I think most of the member states try to improve their PDP right now after COVID and so on. But based on the previous PDPs, most of the member states, when we put it together in the model, we can only achieve almost 18%. So meaning there are a gap around 5% approximately to achieve the APAEC target in terms of the share of the RE in total primary energy supply. And if we're looking at forward in 2040, if we keep maintaining the target scenarios or ATS based on the PDP in all 10 member states, in the 2040, we can only achieve 22%, which is indeed, it is still less than our 2025 target in APAEC scenarios. And when we go ahead with the APAEC scenarios, we can achieve almost 29% of RE share in APS for the whole region. When we're looking at on the renewable energy, we also need to focus on the energy efficiency. One of the measures that we use is we call it the energy intensity, and one of the measures the energy intensity reduction based on 2005 level. So we can achieve quite a significant reduction based on 2005 level. The baseline itself can already achieve such above the target, which is achieving 22%, while it's on the ATS achieving almost 24%. And of course, with our APAEC target, we have to have it more, which is 25%. In 2025, we aim more on the 32.5% target in APAEC scenarios. While if we're looking at the PDP in the ATS target, we can achieve almost 29%, which is quite good, in fact, in comparison with baseline, which is only 23%. I think this energy intensity reduction in the region, I can say, is very well done and perfectly managed, perfectly achieved by all member states. Looking at the renewable energy, we can't really neglect the power sector. So currently, Southeast Asia generating around more than 1 million gigawatt hours. If you're looking at in comparison with Europe, which is now is 2.8, and United States around 4.1, I think with the tremendous significant growth, economic growth, population growth, and so on, the energy demand in the next 20 or 30 years will surpass Europe and perhaps maybe surpasses United States. So meaning in the next 20 years, our current energy status will similar with Europe right now. So and also with a big hope that the economic condition will also reflecting the same. Currently, most of the power generation is coming from coal, which is 40%, and followed by the hydro around 17%, and then bioenergy is quite a lot, which is 3.5%, geothermal 2.3%, similar with the natural gas 2.15%, and oil is the second largest after coal, which is 33.3%. So basically, the power generation still really dominated by the fossil fuel, which is coal and oil. So there are some impact coming from the COVID-19, indeed, especially on the electricity power sectors. So there are the multiplier effects after the COVID-19 pandemic. First, the fall of electricity demand. Second is the net profit loss of electricity sales. Third is the increase of vulnerable groups. And fourth is the further financial loss to provide electricity tariff relief. Some of the studies done by our team, for example, in Indonesia, up to 17.18 degrees of power usage year on year in business and industrial sectors. Malaysia, up to 50% decrease of electricity use in industrial and commercial sectors. In the Philippines, also 30% decrease in the electricity demand in Luzon and Visayas grid from March to June 2020 alone. Some stimulus packages disbursed for this vulnerable group in Vietnam, Thailand, and Indonesia also done on the reducing tariff, and also, for example, in Myanmar got free electricity for 3 months, and some other activities until December. For example, in Lao PDR, releasing subsidizing electricity rate for lowest tier household. In Vietnam, also issuing the second round incentive. In Malaysia, also agrees for an extension of discounted bills until 2021. So a lot of approach done by the government to really a bit relieving the pressure goes to the people in their own country. So if you're looking at the inside of the electricity sector in the same year until 2021, we have some sort of policy activities. For example, as I mentioned previously, that most of the country now redesigning the power development plan, and also some of the countries also delaying the new installation of the new power plants. For example, the new power pathways await in 2020 and delaying the projects between March and August in the Philippines, postponement of the several power projects, and also in Indonesia, 6.5 gigawatt has been delayed and mostly coal power plant. So, but there are some build back better in 2021, recovering electricity market, and we predicted to have in Malaysia, for example, the GDP growth is 6%, and Singapore experienced gradual increase of electricity price in Q3 after the lowest in the past 20 years in April 2020. And Philippines see slight increases of the power demand in September 2020 by 178 megawatt compared to September 2019. So green recovery is there as a core strategy. For example, like in Cambodia to achieve 128 million loan from ADB. In Indonesia, also allocated around 170 million US dollar for PLN. And Sarawak Energy of Malaysia committed to focus on business operation in RE and hydrogen. So if we're looking at another issues on the power sector, which is decarbonization, where most of the country are looking at the region to where the region is going forward in the next couple of decades. So based on our study in the IPS or APIC scenarios, in 2025, we plan to have around 48% in terms of the power generation coming from RE, while in the 2040, we increase up to 51%. Again, in comparison with the PDP, which designed by the East member states, the APEC target slightly higher. In 2025, for example, we are around 15% higher, which is the ATS achieving only 33%, while in 2040 is quite significant differences where the ATS only achieves a 37 RE share, while in the APEC target around 51%. So the the focusing is not only the PV and wind, but also geothermal, hydro, and also bioenergy. And also in the power sectors, we try really on increasing the share of HELE or high efficiency, low emission coal technologies, such as supercritical and ultra supercritical. And we try also to phase out most of the fossil fuel-based power plant. So in regard with our latest study, we call it the AIMS-3, the upgrading ASEAN power grid for increased renewables. So we have done a study for the last 3 years and will be ending next year. There is a possibilities on increasing the share of RE in the installed power capacity, especially if the region already being connected to APG, which is, as I mentioned, in the APAC strategic program areas, in the OPS, that in 2025, we plan to reach 35% of the share installed power capacity if we really being connected in the region. With around 8 terawatt and 340 gigawatt of solar and wind capacity being put into considerations, the AIMS-3 consolidating wind and solar into the ASEAN interconnection project. So this study currently we will later on will develop further, but at the moment we still focusing on the potential to increase through the solar photovoltaic and wind power. But of course, we will consider in the later stage the geothermal, hydro, and of course for example, the co-firing in the power generation and so on to increase the share of RE in the power generation. So basically, the AIMS-3 are also showing their own scenarios. And in 2025, under the base case, all renewable energy is around 31% of the total installed capacity. But under the APAC RE target, it will increase up to 35%. And to accommodate these needs, the existing ASEAN interconnection project must be upgraded. The planned ASEAN interconnection projects for APAC target potential of power trade up to 145,000 gigawatt hour in the region, with around 20,000 gigawatt hour of those are renewable energy resource can be or could be traded, by assuming all other type of energy are fixed. So I think it's quite interesting study. We can later on read the report in our website. So the proposed interconnection, for example, we do have the interconnection between Peninsula, Thailand, Myanmar, Laos, Cambodia, and Vietnam. And in the Peninsula and Singapore, we've been connected with Sumatra, and Sumatra connected to Java. And the other part is the connection between Sarawak, Brunei, Sarawak Sabah, of course, Brunei, and also Kalimantan. And in the 2040, we also been connected with the Philippines. To achieving ASEAN RE target in 2025, we require 19.9 gigawatt of interconnection capacity, and the potential commitment to establish the priority project under LPG up to 2025, and providing cross-border interconnection and strengthening of the grid at national levels are implemented, the ASEAN power grid will be capable of evacuating VRE capacity to achieve the ASEAN RE target. So I think the LPG is quite important to increase the flexibility of the grid in the region, and of course it will lead to the increase of the VRE if we really want to have it increases of RE in the power sector. Therefore, the LPG one of the solution. I think Dr. Wirawat, that's somehow our status on the RE and the whole status of the energy supply and demand in the Southeast Asia region. Once again, thank you very much for your politics and looking forward for the discussion. Back to you again, Dr. Wirawat.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Dr. Nuki, Executive Director of the ASEAN Center for Energies. Thank you so much for your excellent and pragmatic presentation to us. Very valuable information, really update. I found that this is the most update since the meeting of SOM last time. And I understand that you're going to present something like this to the AMEM in September, right? To the minister. So we hear a bit before. Anyway, thank you so much. Yeah, you mentioned about the clear target of the renewable energy, which is quite advanced for ASEAN. Let's say compared to the EE, right? I think RE target is quite good as well. compared to other target in the upper 8. And like you mentioned about the effect of the COVID, right? The COVID-19 effect on demand, that is really the issue. That is really the issue. And anyway, I think while COVID-19 came up, I think the energy transition toward decarbonization is still moving on. That is your task. And I think that renewable should be the issue, and thanks to the connectivity that you mentioned, that can scale up the use of RE, right, into the clean electricity for the region. So with that, thank you so much again, Dr. Nugi, for your valuable talk to all of us today. I think when I look at the time, I think it's time to move to the panel discussion. I think in the panel discussion, okay, we have several experts with us today, including yourself, Dr. Nugi. And I think I perhaps we like to hear each person presentation first. And then I will come up with the Q&A after all presentation has been shown. So with that, allow me to mention to the audience that we have so many experts, you know, say Mr. John Bruce, Chief of Party of the USAID, Dr. Supachari, our professional engineer from Ministry of Energy, DD, Dr. Robert, you know, Edwin from University of Sheffield, UK. Also, Mr. Scott Batos, our regional energy advisor of USAID. Of course, Dr. Nitat Warapon Pipat, our director of generation transmission system of the IGAD. He played a very important role on the connectivities now. And Mr. Jason Wenning, our country manager of FEMA Australia. And then Professor Dr. Bandit Phung Thamasan of the KMUT, the former vice president of the KMUT, join us today. So I'd like to perhaps hear each one presentation about 6-7 minutes, and then we're gonna come up with some question or even from the floor. So may I start, before I put the question to all, including Dr. Nugi, just a moment ago, I'd like to invite Mr. John Well, the Chief Party of USAID, to the presentation on the solar and wind challenge and opportunity. So Mr. John, the floor is yours.
Well, thank you very much. I am pleased to join from Hanoi, Vietnam, on behalf of the U.S. Agency for International Development, for which I lead the Vietnam Low Emission Energy Program #2, or VLEAP-2, which carries on for 5 more years after our initial work that ran from 2015 to 2020. In my talk, I'll focus on the private sector and how it can advance policy reform. I'll focus on how different segments of the private sector have different perspectives and different interests. And this talk will focus on large-scale solar. I understand there's also tremendous interest in Vietnam's experience on rooftop solar, and I'll be pleased to discuss that during the interactive panel discussion. So let me begin just by taking the perspective of the international community. Historically, the renewable energy markets, particularly wind and solar, have been quite challenging for international business in Vietnam. The international lenders, which can provide favorable financing terms through US dollar denominated debt, good loan tenors, attractive rates, and non-recourse project financing, have really not found suitable opportunities in Vietnam up to now, in part because the recent rounds of the feed-in tariffs, or the FITs, had power purchase agreements or PPAs that the international community considered unbankable due to their lack of the leading practices, such as the terms and conditions that would allow the projects to identify and properly mitigate their risk, thus endangering the debt service coverage ratios. So in the recent round of the solar FIT, there was quite limited participation by the international community. And this, in fact, ceded the market to the local development community, primarily large Vietnamese industrial conglomerates that actually proved quite successful, far surpassing the government of Vietnam's goals for deployment of solar under the FIT. They were able to succeed by using a variety of alternative financing strategies, such as vendor financing that required short-term refinancing, or simple balance sheet financing against their general corporate assets. So in the recent FIT, the international community stepped out and the local community stepped in. So next slide, please. The perspective of the international developers helped spark interest in a new policy reform mechanism in Vietnam known as the Direct Power Purchase Agreement, or DPPA. The interest in DPPA originated from the international project development community, so primarily the solar and wind developers, which saw DPPA as a way to attract the international financing, primarily by using large, well-known global brands as the counterparty directly to a transaction. In other words, not using the state electricity company. And by securing the lower cost financing to bring projects to the market in a more accelerated way. And DPPA was the #1 recommendation made by a consortium of chambers of commerce operating as the Vietnam Business Forum, which really issued DPPA as the primary recommendation in its Made in Energy plan, really for a couple, two, 3 years in a row. And it was the strength of this recommendation that helped secure DPPA as a priority item within the political leadership of Vietnam, and to the power market system regulator, the Electricity Regulatory Authority of Vietnam, or ERAV, being tasked with the responsibility to examine DPPA and see how it might suit the Vietnamese power system. Next slide, please. While it was the voice of the international developers that brought the attention to DPPA, next slide, please, it actually quickly emerged that it was the international buyers, particularly the large global brands and foreign direct investors whose logos you see on this image, that really proved even more compelling. So these were companies such as Heineken, Apple, Nike, Puma. You can see the 26 logos on this declaration of companies that have endorsed the DPPA mechanism. And their voice is quite powerful, directly and indirectly through their supply chains. They employ more than 700,000 Vietnamese. Their investment is over $1.5 billion, and their electricity consumption is the same as about 28.4 million Vietnamese households. Population in Vietnam is only about 90 million people, so you can see that's quite a high number. And these are all global companies operating in Vietnam that have made global sustainability commitments. They've signed with programs such as RE100, where they've joined the Science Based Targets Initiative, maybe the UN Fashion Industry Charter for Climate Action. And under all these programs, they've made very strong public commitments to use renewable energy in all the countries in which they operate. Next slide, please. So our USAID VLEAP program was fortunate to be designated to work with ERAV, the power market regulator, to support consideration of the DPPA mechanism. This involved considerable consultations with the corporate buyers and the corporate sellers. We helped form a renewable energy buyers working group so that we could have intensive discussion on the details of various designs and could ensure that the type of DPPA that would emerge would suit both the interests of the buyers and sellers and the nature of the Vietnamese power market. As the government considered DPPA and considered authorization of a pilot program, we continued to help channel the voice of the private sector, particularly the buyer side that represents this significant foreign direct investment. You can see a joint letter from various buyers with world logos such as Nike, Apple, ABB, Google, and this is a very powerful voice in a country such as Vietnam, whose economy is largely powered by FDI and the large operations that these firms bring in. Next slide, please. So there's been tremendous progress with DPPA. The pilot program, which is under consideration, will enable these large consumers to contract with the renewable power project developers, allowing them a way to meet their renewable energy goals. A pilot program is under serious consideration. There's a draft government circular that currently is undergoing a public comment period, and we anticipate by the end of 2021, this pilot could come into operation and serve as a mechanism to evaluate how this mechanism operates and how it eventually could become a permanent element of the Vietnamese power market, complementing other new competitive mechanisms under consideration, such as auction mechanisms. Next slide, please. So anyway, that's the DPPA story. USAID has been quite pleased to be a partner with the government on DPPA. As I mentioned, I know there's a lot of interest in rooftop solar as well. And when we get to the panel discussion, I can maybe help distill some of the lessons Vietnam might offer the region on rooftop solar. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. John. Very interesting. And I think we can see, the key of success of Vietnam, how investment can be accelerated very fast and things like that. Some question will be for you at the end of the presentation of everyone. So I will throw some question to you anyway on Vietnam case very soon. So with that, thank you so much, Mr. John. Very comprehensive and informative information. Thank you so much. So now let us move on to the other two speakers on bioenergy and biofuels. So may I invite, for the essence of time, Dr. Supachari, Dr. O, from DD of the Ministry of Energy to present, and perhaps followed by Dr. Robert of University of Sheffield on the same topic. So Dr. O, are you ready? Yes, floor is yours.
Okay. Let me check. Share. Oh, finish. Wait a minute. Okay, can you see my PowerPoint? Hi. Maya. Hi, everyone, hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
You can see my PowerPoint?
No, we can't see your PowerPoint yet.
Wait a second, please.
Yes, we can see it now.
Okay, this is my section. I would like to talk about bioenergy, biofuel status, and their role in ASEAN and renewable energy mix. This section, I will invite Dr. Robert Edwan, who was Deputy Director of the Chemical and Biological Engineering, the University of Sheffield, UK, to get involved with. Today, I would like to talk about the GDP Global Net Zero Concept, Thailand Policy and Planning, Bioenergy, Biofuel Status, and their role in ASEAN, and Renewable Energy Mix. While Dr. Robert Edwan will talk about the bioenergy as a part of energy mix in the EU and the UK. This is the graph to show about ASEAN expect GDP in 2021 by IMF. You can see that since 2015 till 2019, Thailand and ASEAN have GDP around 5, roughly 8, something like that, and then it's dropped down since 2019 and fall in 2020. This is we found that economic slow and down because of COVID pandemic hit in our region, and IMF engaged that we will get much better in this year, and the GDP will reach up. However, I don't think this is at all correct, because we still have encounter with the pandemic and get much more infection. So that some country which was project such as Thailand, Malaysia in the past, maybe it's not correct at all. And at the moment, the IMF engaged that Myanmar will drop down around 8.9% because of political problem in their country. And Thailand announced to reach up around 1.73% in this year. While Indonesia engaged to 4.3 and Malaysia is around 6.5, but I don't think it's at all correct. So that let's see for the next what's gonna happen, and we will keep an eye on for the next step. And this is the graph of net zero emission project by IEA in 2050. You can see that if this year in 2050, if there is no any policy or measurement, the carbon dioxide will reach up from 36.5 to 46.5 gigaton CO2, so that every country try to drop down and try to reduce CO2 to cap 1.5 degrees Celsius by reduce carbon dioxide from transportation and building and power and heat and also industry to net zero emission. That's why all of countries try to look at renewable energy and energy transition and help to save all around the world. And this is Thailand Alternative Energy Development Plan in 2018 till 2037. In fact, we have the old part 2015 version till 2036. However, at the moment, we new version plan. You can see at the right-hand side, not only AEDP plan or alternative energy plan, we still have a power development plan, energy efficiency plan, gas plan, and also oil plan. We totally have a 5 plan to develop energy. In 2019, we reached to around 16.4%, and we aim to 30% in 2037. For 16.4%, we share from electricity roughly 3%, large hydro and small power plant, and biofuel share 2.7%, while heat is roughly 10%. let's see for the next. This is the alternative energy development plan. We category in 3 sections. The first one is electricity. The second is heat, and another one biofuel we mentioned on ethanol and biodiesel. For electric generation, we got from PV power, solar, wind power, small hydropower, biomass, biogas, and waste to energy, last hydropower. While heat we got from PV, solar, biomass, biogas, biomethane, waste to energy, and we engage that biofuel will reach to 7.5 million liters per day, and biodiesel is 8 million liters per day in 2037. This is our Thailand situation in 2020 first, and we found that the production is dropped down around 1.9% from the reduction of crude oil, condensate, hydroelectric production, and import is dropped down around 4.5%, while consumption is dropped down 5.7%. Totally final energy consumption is dropped down around 6.6% from oil production, electricity, natural gas, and also coal. This is the plan to develop PV solar in 2018 till 2037. We generate from independent producer, power plant producer, small SPP, VSPP, solar rooftop, and we engage to create 16 solar farm with 2.7 gigawatt in 2037. And we would like to share around 35% of overall capacity. For the community power plant of for the local economic program, we would like to reach to 150 megawatt, which consists of biomass and biogas. For each of them is allowed 75 megawatt. We have to create around 40 to 50 pilot project around the whole country, and the community power plant will share around 3 to 6 megawatt from private or government enterprise and community as well, around 10% of them. This is the biofuel current situation and market. You can see that the current situation, ethanol will reach around 3.8 million liters per day, while biodiesel is around 4.9 million liters per day. For biodiesel, B100 is around 38 baht per liter, and B7 is around 17 baht, not include the VAT, but the fresh fruit bun is around 5 to 7 baht per kilogram. CPO is 34 baht per kilogram. While ethanol we produce from cassava and molasses as the main route, the cassava is around 2 baht per kilogram. The ethanol is around 25 baht per liter, and we have a manufacturer and have a hybrid to production as well. And this is the price and the market. We have gasohol from ethanol blending 10% and E20 blending 20%, biodiesel B7, B10, and B20. The price is around 25 to 28 baht. All of them, and R&D engagement in this year, we would like to study about Euro 5, enhancing the old car and small car less than 12 seats to use B10, and how biofuel relate with GDP, something like that, the markets as well, and enhancing the old car and motorcycle to use E20. All of this is have to waiting for the funding to study, and at the moment we have a COVID pandemic problem, and maybe sometimes something may change or depend on the funding as well. For international working, we work with partnership agriculture green economy with UNIDO Thailand to develop BCG model, and we work with Korea to study renewable energy and energy efficiency. We would like to study about biofuel and impact, and also EV in the future, and how to use 100% renewable energy in the factory. Yes, we still working with ASEAN group and would like to shift up the ratio from 23% up if we can. And for the biofuel technology, BCG model, and smart city, you can see that the right hand side, this is biofuel and biotechnology. We can category in 4 groups. The first one is conventional biofuel, advanced biofuel, and biomethane for transportation, electric and heat can produce from agricultural residue, wood chip, and wood pellet. And all of these we can mix and combine or convert from this with PV solar and wind solar farm to generate electric power and to transfer to community. All of this we would like to develop clean economy and bio-circular economy model via the information logistics, B2B business, e-commerce, blockchain, sandbox, and all mega data need to support and project more to develop the market. And we have EEC investment project in Thailand to develop biochemical industry. And all of the we try to be the smart city and carbon neutral society in the future. Furthermore, we have alternative biofuel technology to study, for example, biofuel for aviation to reduce emission in atmosphere, supply ethanol for hand gel cleaning solution, palm oil, fragrance, biolubricant, and biohybrid hydrogen fuel cell, cosmetics, soap, massage, palm oil, biomass, power station, biorefinery, municipal solid waste, and waste to energy, biogas, bioplastic, medical, pharmaceutical supplement, oleochemical, and biopetrochemical, and biorefinery. For the next, we look forward to investment and also EV for transportation. We have a plan to develop 2020. It means that we share 30% XEV to be in 2030. And at the moment, we have a EV, for example, HEV, plug-in, hybrid plug-in, and battery EV. Totally is around 180,000 cars, which included car, motorcycle, tuk-tuk, bus, and we maybe would like to develop electric bus for EEC estates for commercial, and also electric railway in Phuket. All of this is Thailand, and would like to invite Dr. Robert to talk about the current EU and the UK supply, demand and supply bio energy.
Okay, thank you. I want to use the data shown here to highlight some of the points in Europe's progress towards net zero emissions in electricity generation. If we look at this data here, at first it seems very encouraging in that the use of fossil fuels is now below 40%. But if we look a bit more deeply into this data, we can see that we do have the advantage in Europe of nuclear energy providing between 20 and 30% of our electricity generation. And if we look even further, while in the UK, our use of coal is now to below 1% for electricity generation, it's still around 16% in the rest of Europe. But the main point here, I think, is that fossil fuels must decline to below 20% worldwide to meet the targets of 2050. And that's 20% of all fuel use, not just for electricity. So we should be moving towards and aiming for zero fossil fuel use in electricity generation. Now, on the next slide, if we look at bioelectricity, that's electricity generated from biosources, which is still a fairly low percentage, then if we look at the UK and the rest of Europe, we're allowed around 50% or 55% of bioelectricity is generated using solid biomass. And at least 1/3 of the UK solid biomass is imported wood pellets. And there's a potential problem longer term about importing such fuels. On the next slide, if I sum this up, then for the UK, certainly solid biomass is of questionable long-term benefit. I don't think we should be importing solid biomass. We'll still need carbon capture and storage, and so we still need to look at the research and development of carbon capture and storage. And in the UK, we use a lot of wind generation, and that will increase, but that's going to require better electricity storage, as in batteries or perhaps storage as hydrogen. And then there are a potential problem of governments and the general population being somewhat overconfident with the progress, real or proposed, and over-reliant on one solution. And I think this is what I really want to get across here, is that we must have local and regional solutions to get to the zero emissions that we're aiming for. And as in the net zero roadmap, immediate and massive deployment of all available clean technologies. Okay, thank you.
Okay, for conclusion and the next future, I would like to say that bioenergy transition and energy mix needs time to improve, and agricultural development, bioenergy, EV technology are significant to supply via the strategic policy and planning, R&D financial support and investment to clarify that the sharing market. And COVID pandemic is the main externality factor to less of economic world, and new normal and new lifestyle maybe lead to new technological improvement, innovation, bioenergy product in the future. Logistic infrastructure, B2B business, e-commerce, IT, digital platform, sandbox, marketing will drive both the demand and supply side in the future. UK, EU, ASEAN, Thailand, and all allow the world attempt to reach the zero emission as much as we can. Thank you.
Oh, thank you very much indeed, Dr. Supashri. Thank you so very much. Very excellent and informative, both of you and Dr. Robert. I think it's quite clear that Thailand have a policy toward carbon neutrality, right, or net zero, as you mentioned. And thanks for update us, the AEDP, of the Ministry of Energy, particularly on solar, on biofuel, on biomass, on BCG, right? This is quite interesting, and on the EV. And thank you, Dr. Robert, on your great wisdom on toward net zero and from your European experience. And of course, I think, RE is still costly. So let's discuss during the Q&A how we're going to cope with the cost of the RE that's still high, but tendering to be lower in the future. So with that, I will come back with some question to both of you very soon. But with the extent of time, we have to move forward to Mr. Scott Battles, our Regional Energy Advisor, on your presentation on distributed generation. So please, Dr. Scott, please.
Yes, good morning. Thank you. And thank you to the organizers for inviting USAID here in Bangkok to join this important meeting today. If I can get to the next slide, please. I have just about 10 slides to share, and I'll try to move quickly. Some of my topics have already been covered, which is great to see. Next slide, please. Just briefly, what I'll touch on is kind of the U.S. position and strategy on climate change and clean energy for the globe and specifically for Southeast Asia. I'll introduce a few of the projects and achievements that we've had here in the region, and then just give a quick look ahead as to where we're going in the future. Next slide, please. So quickly, hopefully many of you have already noticed kind of the America's re-engagement on climate change and clean energy. We rejoined the Paris Agreement in February of this year, and we've increased our goal for reducing our own emissions at home to 50 to 52% by 2030. Again, seeking to re-engage as a leader on this topic. Here, closer to home, USAID and our regional office here in Bangkok, Thailand, issued its new 5-year strategy. And this strategy focuses on a more resilient, inclusive, and secure Southeast Asia. And one element of this regional strategy is, again, strengthening the energy system. And I highlight the system because it's important, as the speakers have already noted this morning, that we address decarbonization from production to distribution and transmission to all the way to the use of energy resources. And only in that kind of complete systematic approach can we achieve our decarbonization goals. And one of the programs, the initiative that we're working under now is called the Asia Enhancing Development and Growth Through Energy, or Asia Edge Initiative. We've been working under this initiative for the last couple of years. And you'll notice that it very much supports the decarbonization efforts in 4 key kind of baskets of work. One of those is, again, looking to modernize utility performance and efficiency. Second is deploying advanced energy systems. The third is promoting the adoption of transparent and best value procurement. This is important because it's, I think, critical that we understand the full life cycle costs and benefits of the investments and policy decisions made in the energy space. And the last basket, which has also been touched on this morning, is to increase regional energy market integration and trade. Go to the next slide, please. This is just another look at the Asia Edge, those 4 baskets I just mentioned. And within that space, the next couple of slides, I'll share just a few of the examples of what we're doing again, and wrap up with kind of what will be where we're headed in this work in the region. Next slide. So the first example I wanted to share is some fairly recent work that we've been really honored to take on together with Thailand's Office of Energy Regulatory Commission, OERC. Together, we've been looking at battery energy storage systems and looking at global best practices for how utilities can implement and adopt this new technology. Again, I think this storage technologies will be critical to being able to fully tap and utilize the available variable renewable energy resources in this region. We've been very proud to work together with OERC to put together the direction for Thailand. We think there are lessons learned here that apply to the region. And we've been sharing some of those lessons through our Asia Edge Power Sector Learning Series. We just recently hosted a session on this topic just a week or so ago. And anyone who is not on that mailing list would like to learn more, please contact me. I have my contact information at the end of this presentation. Another interesting, exciting kind of discussion underway here is we're also now talking with our partners here in Thailand about how can we support the rapid adoption of electric vehicles. Again, looking at impacts on the grid system, economic impacts, et cetera. This is just, again, one example of how we partner to advance clean energy technologies. Go to the next slide, please. Yes, I was so happy. Dr. Nuki already covered this topic very well, but we have been very proud to partner with the ASEAN Center for Energy and Papua to support the ASEAN Interconnection Master Plan study. I won't cover this ground again. Dr. Nuki did a very good job of explaining this work, but I'll only kind of reinforce the point that we see the increased integration of the grid systems as very important to increasing flexibility as well as resilience in the face of crises, whether that's a natural disaster or a pandemic, but having that increased grid connections and flexibility certainly strengthens the entire system and everyone that relies on these systems. So great ways to support not only lives, but also the livelihoods and the economies in the region. So we're very proud we've partnered with ACE on this work to date, and we look forward to continuing expanding on this partnership moving forward. Go to the next slide. This, I'm happy to share, this is again a new tool that USAID, together with our partners at the National Renewable Energy Laboratory, NREL, we just launched this new solar resource tool. It's a high resolution mapping exercise covering all of Southeast Asia. And what this allows any user, the website there is at the bottom right of the slide. So anyone can go to this site free of charge and visualize as well as download very high resolution solar resource data. I see this again as an important tool that we are providing to the region, whether you're a policymaker or a project developer. This information, freely available, is helping to level the playing field in terms of information and how are decisions made on what is the best energy resource to tap into. Again, looking at a life cycle impacts, costs, and benefits. Again, it's wonderful to see there's just incredible solar potential across this region. And looking forward, we're hoping to develop a similar high resolution tool such as this for the region's wind resources as well. So look for that in the future. Next slide, please. And this slide, I know we've been focusing on integrating variable renewables. So I wanted to share a piece of work that my colleagues in our office in India, together with NREL and a number of partners, the World Bank and the government of India as well, worked together to put together a fairly, it's complex, a complex model. And if I can ask, there's an animation, if someone can click, there's one way to get this animation started on this slide. But what this model was looking at and seeking to kind of answer the question is how can India best integrate what their targeted 160 gigawatts of solar and wind into the existing system. And so what you're seeing here is the modeling of the entire grid system and how can they adopt and adapt to the new solar and wind resources and prepare for that, that dispatch of that power on a day-to-day basis. So working together, you might notice, hopefully you'll see, that it was actually possible for the grid operators to prepare a day ahead and actually ramp down coal and gas as needed based on the expected solar output that you see there in that yellow bump that pops up in the morning and then declines in the evening. So they were able to best utilize those available solar resources with minimal curtailment. The curtailment, maybe if I can ask the operator to play this one more time. The curtailment that you'll see, again, the seeking to minimize that curtailment was in the red at the top of the chart. But I think a couple of interesting lessons that was learned through this collaborative exercise. One, again, was that the operators were able to, with planning and some retrofits of the coal-fired power plants, they were able to prepare for and reduce the output and ramp up and down traditional coal-fired power, which initially they thought that might not be possible. So that's one interesting lesson learned from this. Another lesson learned is, if you've noticed on the animation, that when you look across the country and system-wide, the wind resources really are acting as like baseload power. If someone can just click the animation one more time, I think it's very interesting to see how that blue bar at the bottom, representing the wind system through the day and the night, is really quite steady when you spread out that resource across the country. But you'll see that it's acting almost as a baseload power source, which is a wonderful element to understand as we're looking to how do we bring on more wind and solar to achieve our shared goals. Thank you for that. I go to the next slide, please. So getting close to my summary here, I wanted to, perhaps I'm bragging a little bit about some of the success that we've had, that USAID has had across Southeast Asia. And I wanted to share what our initial targets were for a number of our programs across the region. And this is kind of wrapping up about the past 6 years of work that we've led in this space. And I wanted to share that, we had what we thought were aggressive targets when we started each of these programs, shared on the left-hand side there. But what we've actually achieved as we've kind of wrapped up the work to date is a significant, more than we expected in terms of achievements, which I'm very proud to share with this audience. Again, almost 10 gigawatts of new renewable energy generating capacity has been brought online. We've mobilized $8.6 billion for clean energy. And again, we've done this through supporting both projects, technologies, as well as new policies, regulations, and standards, implementing more than 100 of those new regulations across the region. So very proud to share this achievement to date, and excited as we are looking forward as to where we will continue to work and partner on this effort, this important effort. So then one more slide, please. So again, just looking ahead, I wanted to share, we are launching a new regional program called Southeast Asia Smart Power Program. It will be, again, very much a system-wide approach, working on from renewables to the grid integration regionally, as well as those end-use technologies, whether that's storage, EVs, and most importantly, of course, energy efficiency. So look for that this year as we continue our work in the region. And then this last bullet I wanted to share, and I was so happy that John Wells talked about that experience working with corporate leaders in Vietnam. As a matter of fact, I worked in the office in Vietnam as we were setting up that partnership effort to support the direct power purchase agreement work, the pilot program there. And since then, since I came over to Bangkok about 1.5 years ago, I've continued to engage with those corporate leaders that are seeking to achieve their own clean energy targets, not only in Vietnam, but across this region. And so what I've offered to those companies is to establish a new regional partnership, or we call it the Corporate Clean Energy Alliance. So over the past 6 months, I've been conducting a round of consultations, and I've hosted one virtual roundtable meeting, inviting these companies to talk together about what are their priorities and challenges in this region in terms of implementing their own clean energy and climate objectives, and how we can work together. So again, this is looking ahead. We'll be hosting this new regional platform with corporate leaders. I find these companies to be very natural allies in the work that we're seeking to do. And they bring a lot of innovative thinking as well as financing to achieving our shared goals. Last slide, please, for me. I'll just wrap and say again, I'm super pleased and excited to join this panel, this impressive panel today, and happy to answer any questions. I've got my contact information as well as our Asia Edge Hub contact information for anyone that would like to learn more, participate in our webinar events. Please do feel free to get in touch with us. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you very much, Mr. Scott. Very comprehensive and very up to date. We heard about good news from you, several issues now, So thanks to the USAID, contribution to our region, especially you mentioned about ACE. Please work closely with ACE, ASEAN Center for Energy. They are the first window of our region now in terms of energy, and future. I think Dr. Nuki is happy to work with you very much indeed toward clean energy, toward climate change and decarbonization.
We are honored to work with ACE. Yes, thank you.
Okay, yes. And then you mentioned about so many issues that maybe we can come up with some question like under the Asia Age, right? The Asia Age initiative, about the battery storage EV, interesting. And also congratulations for the achievement of the target, you are exceed the target already, your program. So interesting indeed to learn the key of success, why you can be coming over achievement of your target in all aspects. Interesting. So with that, Mr. Scott, I'll be back to you very soon. And I'd like to move on to our director, Dr. Nitas of IGAD. Ajahn Nitas, I think we will hear from you a bit on the ASEAN Smart Power Grid, and perhaps you can share your view on interconnectivity as well. So the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Dr. Wirawat. So thank you, Dr. Nuki, for special talk on the ASEAN renewable energy status that helped me very much to show to the people that how the ASEAN going to be increase the renewable energy in the ASEAN. So next slide, please. So let me start with current energy status of each country. You can see the information of each country around my power around the pictures. So you can see that mainly we ASEAN rely on the fossil fuel, except Lao PDR that mainly from the hydropower plant. So however, the renewable energy in the region have made significant contribution to ASEAN power industries. If we refer to the ASEAN Plan for Action of Action for Energy Cooperation or APAX Phase 2, which target high RE penetrations into the power system for 23% by 2025. Most ASEAN nations promote the utilization of RE, in particular wind and solar. Next slide, please. This picture shows the ASEAN Power Grid projects in detail. The idea of the ASEAN Power Grid or APG was come up to construct a regional power interconnection through the 16 ASEAN interconnection projects, which some has been put into operation to connect the regions. The APG project is expected to enhance electricity trade across borders that would provide benefit to meet the rising electric demand and improve access to energy services in the regions. The ASEAN countries would mutually benefit from this regional grid. Next slide, please. Renewable energy as a new trend in the ASEAN. So to develop the RE in the ASEAN, we have to focus on the two technologies. The first is RE integration and smart grid. And the second is the new emerging technology and the digitalization in the energy sector. Based on the target of 23% share of the renewable in the ASEAN primary energy mix by 2025, ASEAN plan to focus on the two areas that I mentioned. The RE integration and smart grid have become emerging trend to accelerate the RE deployment as well as to achieve the target. And new and emerging technology and digitalization in the energy sector, including hydrogen technologies and energy storage, have also gradually played the significant roles in the power system. Next slide, please. To transform from the fossil base to the renewable energy base, we need ASEAN power grid. The first is we have to integrate that the regional power system together. We need the physical line for the interconnection. When we have that the interconnection line, and then we can support more regional power trade, both bilateral and also multilateral trade from the like example, we have the interconnection between Thailand and Laos PDR. So we have the interconnection between Thailand and Malaysia, and also we can use that interconnection line to have the bilateral and also multilateral trade. After we have more interconnection line, we can support the efficient renewable energy integration into the system and also have the long-term decarbonization. After that, we can allow the potential of the resource, the RE resource in the region, and also increase the electrification rate for the people. Next slide, please. We have the three main items that very important when we need to have the ASEAN Smart Power Grid. The first is the fully integrated infrastructure that I mentioned on the previous slides to allow the free power flow resources, allow the higher RE penetration into the regional power system. And after we have the infrastructure, we need the platform or trading framework to enable the power that could lead to the regional power market development and also the mechanism for the trading in the future. And the third, that is the last but not least, is we need the ASEAN institution to operate the APG efficiently and smartly. The ASEAN institution would be required to support the regional for the generation and transmission system planning, as well as system operation of the regional power system. Not only T function is really important. In addition, the ASEAN power grid in the future would need to function smartly. The regional grid would first optimize energy efficiently. Second, reduce the operational cost, make all the countries risk cost operation, release the burden related to excess power generation capacity. If we have the excess energy from some country, and then we can share to the other countries. The fourth, allow the renewable energy to integrate it into our system. And the final item is utilization the technology of the flexible operation. If we can have the interconnection between country to country, and then we can share the reserve, and we can make renewable energy increasing in our system with safety operation, because we can share the reserve when some part of the solar plant lacking the sunlight, and then we can share the reserve from other country, even in the case that in the one country that cannot enough to support that. So you can see that interconnection is very important for the RE integration in the system and for the ASEAN. Most importantly, the future APG would create grid interconnection, assist the grid modernization in the supporting the regional power system, repair chains, and the APG together with the regional energy market, integration, the grid expansion, and innovative economic would strengthen the electricity capacity and develop electricity trading in this region. Whereas the APG will be beneficial for the ASEAN and individual ASEAN member states. Next slide, please. Thank you very much. That is briefly about the ASEAN Smart Power Grid.
Thank you very much, Ajahn Nitat, very comprehensive and excellent presentation to show, the importance of the interconnectivity, not only, to use more RE in the grid, but also this kind of security as well, right? The security, and of course, maybe some cost involved in this business maybe need to be discussed. And then you mentioned about the APG progress under APAIC. That's really nice indeed. And then your focus on renewable energy grid integration through the smart grid, and then using the digitalization to a decarbonization. That is the direction of the EGAT, right? EGAT for all.
Yes,
that is the new theme, EGAT for all. Yeah, yes, Ajahn, we can have some question for you after this. Let me move on for the other two speakers, and then we come up with a all speaker question, and even from the floor. So with that, may I move to Mr. Jason, the country manager of the FEMA on the smart grid or on the residential sector or EV that you try to give us today's presentation. Mr. Jason, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Just one thing, I think my camera's been disabled by the host. So if you wouldn't mind re-enabling it. Yeah, here we go. So I'll start my video. There we go. All right, so I'll just share my presentation. Okay. Everyone see that okay? So thank you very much for the opportunity to participate in the event today. My topic is going to be focusing around solar integration with battery storage, primarily for the home, and also how that works with electric vehicle technology, which is a topic that's becoming increasingly relevant in Australia and other countries in the region. So I'll have a quick look at an overview of solar and battery technology that's available for the home, and how do we integrate EV chargers with solar and storage to optimise the use of renewable energy for that purpose, and look at some of the policy settings and incentives that are available in Australia at the moment to help facilitate the growth in the use of these technologies. So a quick overview. Essentially, if we're talking about battery storage, we've got two main types of inverters with solar or with solar and battery. So a standard inverter is just designed to be used with solar. So it'll convert the energy from the sun into into AC energy, which is then used in the home. And strictly speaking, you can connect a battery to a normal solar inverter, but as you'll see shortly, that's not the most efficient way to do it. The better way is to use what we call a hybrid inverter, which is designed to convert the solar energy into AC as well to go to the home, but it also can keep it as DC energy to send it straight to an integrated or separate battery system. And that's what we call a true battery-ready solution. So you can add batteries to an existing solar system. You can see in the picture here, we have a solar inverter, which is generating AC going into the home here. And we also have a battery system here connected in AC coupled mode. So it's taking the AC output from the solar inverter, converting it back into DC and then storing it in the batteries. And then the batteries can then discharge again AC power into the home when either the sun isn't shining or the load is higher than the solar can actually manage. More efficient way of doing it is to add batteries directly to a hybrid inverter. So essentially you're only converting the energy once from DC to DC for the battery and DC to AC to go into the home. So you're not going from DC to AC back to DC before you go to the battery itself. And that leads to more energy being available for use in the home from the batteries. So the other thing to look at in terms of battery technology is whether it's a high voltage battery or a low voltage battery. So what I mean when I talk about that, a high voltage battery is one where, say, it might be a 200 volt battery cell voltage, and that means that it doesn't require a transformer in order to connect that into the AC for conversion for power into the home. So therefore, you don't need to lose that energy that you would in a transformer solution, where if you have a low voltage battery like 24 or 48 volts, and effectively you have to step that voltage up to a higher DC voltage before it can actually be used in the battery inverter and then converted into AC. So it can lose up to 4 or 5% efficiency, the difference between low and high voltage batteries. So a high voltage battery solution for the home is a better one because reliability is better, the costs are lower, and best of all, you're getting more use of your renewable energy than you would if it was a low voltage battery solution. So I wanted to give you an example of a case study. So I actually have a solar system with battery storage on my home. So this is just an example of my system. So on the left-hand side here, you can see it's been installed about 18 months ago, roughly. So I have about 5 kilowatts of actual solar PV and 12 kilowatt hours of battery storage. And you can see here with the statistics and with the graph on the right-hand side, the energy from the grid. So significant savings, cost savings, nearly 80% in the first year of operation for the purchase of power. Self-sufficiency, or in other words, the amount of energy I'm generating and using myself from renewable energy, 83%, which is significant. And 78% of all the energy that I'm actually generating, I'm using myself, either by using it directly or putting it in the batteries. And then the other 20% I'm selling into the grid. And you can see on the right-hand side here, the graph, the grey bars is the before, and then the once we get to September 2019 and onwards, the dark blue and the yellow bars, you can see the difference in how much less energy I'm using from the grid because of solar and battery. And I can really only do that because of the battery, which clearly provides energy at night when the sun isn't shining, and also helps with things like power outages, where if there's energy in the battery, I can use that to power essential appliances in my house. So that I can keep the fridge going, keep the internet running, charge my phone, those sorts of things. So talking about EV chargers, so there's two main types, AC and DC, and you can see here in the diagram the difference. So AC just supplies the car from an AC supply, and the onboard charger on the car then converts it into DC to charge the battery, or a DC charger will clearly just directly send DC energy straight into the battery without the need of any other conversion. So one of the key technologies that's being explored at the moment is the so-called vehicle to grid, where you have your fleet of electric vehicles, and if they're sitting in a car park or sitting at someone's home and they're connected into the grid, the power from those batteries can be used as a distributed energy resource to, amongst other things, help in times of peak demand on the grid overall, reduce the impact of large spikes in demand, and also help to stabilise the grid during network disturbances, for example. So the car itself in addition to any home battery you might have, can actually become part of the wider network through this V2G. And a key part of the technology to allow that is the EV charger, which facilitates that two-way flow of electricity to and from the grid and the vehicle itself. So electric vehicle charging is great, but of course you would want to maximise the amount of renewable energy that's being used to charge those vehicles. So again, that's where battery comes into it, and where solar plus storage can really boost the renewable penetration when we are charging more and more electric vehicles rather than using fossil fuel generation sources. So as an example here, at a home level, the ideal scenario is you pair your electric vehicle charger at your home with your solar and battery system. So they talk to one another, and the solar and battery system communicates with the charger when it's in use, and it optimises the amount of renewable energy that's being used to charge the vehicle when either the sun is shining or there's energy stored in the battery. So if there's low loads in the home, you would then feed more into your vehicle and vice versa. And then in the opposite direction, the vehicle to grid, it would also facilitate that use of the vehicle, the stored energy in the vehicle battery, to either help power the loads in the home or to be fed back into the wider grid. Battery storage system is a really, really important feature that we're starting to see more and more, and any sort of solution like this really needs to allow for that level of integration to maximise the use of renewable energy for vehicle charging in the home. So the other thing that is important is, how do you integrate it all together and make it easy for the homeowner to use? So you can see here an example of an app-based solution where this is telling the homeowner exactly what their battery storage and solar system is doing. And then down the bottom here, they can see what's happening with the charging of their electric vehicle, how much energy it's using, the state of charge. And they can also manually control the charging if they by the system, in this case, integrating the FEMA solar and battery system with the FEMA wallbox charger. And so just using an interface like this makes it very easy for the homeowner to control, but also to manage and get the most out of their renewable energy for the home, and also if they are charging an electric vehicle. So lastly, I just wanted to cover a bit about incentives in Australia that are helping drive this push into solar and battery storage, and starting a little bit with EV as well. So obviously we know what a feed-in tariff is. And in Australia, in the early days of solar, electricity retailers were offering very high feed-in tariffs to help encourage people to install solar. The rate of solar installation in Australia in the residential area, so over time, inevitably, these feed-in tariffs that you get for exporting electricity will come down. And the more they come down, the more that makes the business case stronger for battery storage, because if you're earning less for selling your excess power than you are paying to buy it from the grid, then you want to keep more of it for yourself, because it's cheaper to use it when you generate it yourself rather than sell it into the grid. So while these feed-in tariffs come down, that strengthens the business case for battery storage in the home. And in terms of overall incentives, here in Australia, we have an incentive for actually putting solar on your home in the form of tradable certificates, where for a homeowner, you essentially receive an upfront discount on the cost of your system. And then those certificates are then traded by generally the person who has installed the solar system for you, and they get paid back for those through electricity retailers who buy those certificates to achieve their targets they have to have for using renewable energy as part of the energy mix that they sell. For home batteries, various regions in Australia provide rebates to the homeowner to install batteries, to encourage them to install batteries. And last but not least, for home EVs at the moment, there's not much in the way of incentives for actually installing an EV charger in your home. However, there is now a push gathering momentum for encouraging the purchase of EV vehicles themselves with government incentives. And that, of course, will lead to an uptake in the installation of electric vehicle chargers as well. So just wanted to give you a bit of an overview of the sort of incentives and schemes that we're using in Australia to encourage the take-up of these different technologies to decarbonise the economy. So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much, Mr. Jason, for your very comprehensive presentation. You mentioned about nicely about the EV and storage in Australia, and then some question may come up, and then you mentioned about the solar, home battery, home EV under the government incentive, right? So I think we may come up with some question to you on this. I understand that Professor Bandit may not have the presentation, so I think we will start the panel discussion from now. We have about 40 minutes left for the essence of time. And there are some questions from the floor that perhaps I try to throw it to our expert as well. For example, the undersea cable, under the, interconnection or floating solar electrification, EV, or even the Indian case. Maybe we can come back on that because there's some question on Indian case that Mr. Scott mentioned. So with that, Mr. Nuki is still here, right? So I will start the panel discussion now. Mr. Nuki, hello?
Hello,
Are you there? Yes, okay, Mr. Nuki, thank you very much. I think we come back to your presentation once more. People from the floor may like to hear from you more on the renewable energies. Of course, maybe no need to mention about each country because they can read it from your presentation. But apparently I think we realize the important role of renewable energy transition for sustainability. And perhaps you can clarify more the role of renewable in terms of energy security, in security. And why the ASEAN, why we accelerate the uptake of the clean energies, both on-grid, off-grid. How ASEAN balance emission reduction with the key role of the fossil fuel that still continue to play a role, right, in the region energy demand. And what will happen to the coal and LNG power generation in the future? And CCUS may play more important role in the future or not? So this is the first question. Maybe you can try to answer briefly.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Wirawat. I think a very good question from your side. Why RE is very important on the future energy mix? I think this relies on our mandate, which we need to provide the people of South Asia with affordable energy supply. And if you're looking at our study on the AO6, that in the next 20 years, the region will be the net importers for all of the fossil fuel energy, not to mention coal and also gas, which is all of those are becoming the imported energy supply in the region. And of course, it will relate with how much that we spend for importing those primary energy. And according to IEA and our study, that in 2040 we're going to at least $300 billion we need to spend for imported primary energy. Therefore, strategically, I think it is very important and crucial for the region to start with the RE development, R&D, and also try to increase the share a bit by bit. And in the transition itself, I think is very a right moment to combine those RE with the existing fossil fuel generation. For example, if we talk about the power generation, so those combination is very suitable. We can't really having one better to another, but we need focusing on all at the same platform. We're looking at all at the same perspective, and which one is the cheapest one, which one is the more affordable one to purchase by the people of Southeast Asia. That's, I think, the most important one, Dr. Wirawat. That's
Yes.
hopefully answering your first question. And regarding your next question, I think on the can you repeat again for the second question that you
Yes, because you know, it's definitely renewable is good for sustainability, emission reduction, but in terms of energy security, it's be part of the energy mix, right? So that, as you mentioned clearly, very well indeed, that we still play around with fossil fuel, right? We cannot get rid of them, at least in the next decade. For example, coal or even LNG. But LNG is still clean energy, but still fossil. So with that, perhaps ASEAN need to balance this kind of atom to reduce emission to this kind of energy mix, right? And perhaps technologies like CCUS may play a role. So what is your point on that? And it's going to come very soon or not? These kind of things.
Yeah, we've done a lot of study on and also collaborative study regarding the CCUS and CCS. It will coming through, but not very soon, because the stage of the development is still very early. And in the Southeast Asia, we haven't really have a very practical activities on that approach. And in the perspective of the business sectors, I think this one is still quite expensive. That's why we need a lot of support from DPs, direct partners, as well as IOs to really support on strategically from the development, implementation, as well as commercialization in the future. So currently what we are doing, I think, is on the right track. We try to blend all of the potential of the RE, both in the power sectors as well as the primary energy supply in combination with fossil fuel. So strategically, I think that's the best way that we try to overcome later on the shortage of the energy supply in terms of the primary energy supply coming from fossil fuel. So step by step is the best way, and putting all of the perspective into the same level of approach. We treat them equally. I think that's the best way. I also that we are still abundantly with the coal and natural gas, and so introducing the clean coal technology, HELE technology, I think one of the best way, and also combining with natural gas is also somehow a good way to approach for the more cleaner energy supply in the next. Dr. Wirawat.
Yes, I agree with you. I think very nice indeed when you say that. Actually, the path toward the carbon neutrality or net zero, I think is still narrow, but achievable, right, in the future. That's why I would insist here that many countries in our region, like ASEAN member states, still not really commit the year of the target. We go toward this path, but we cannot say when exactly. So this is the point that perhaps we can discuss further at the high level. So thank you so much. And my last very short question from the floor is that because this forum talk about sustainability and affordability. So with that, for policy intervention, to what extent whether your work on AEO6 incorporate the cost of renewable technologies as well as investment costs or not in your study, apart from technical feasibility or environmental impact? Can you say a few words on that, on the cost?
Yes, I think very good question again for the audience. We did incorporate those perspectives, the cost perspective, especially on the power generation sectors. And of course, it revealed that it is not easy to really switch from the fossil fuel-based economics to the full transition into the RE. There should be a transition. That's why the cost is one of the most important element. And basically what we consider on the previous study is not really complete on how we can see the least cost possibilities. So that's why we'll upgrade the study into the next ASEAN Energy Outlook segment will be launched next year on the cost optimization approach. So over there, we can see what will be the best cost possible with the decarbonization approach, for example. So see more clearer view on the energy landscape in the future when we put all of the technology, all of the possible primary energy fuel into the equation, and what will be the target of the emission as well into the equation. That will be something that we can really looking forward. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We're looking forward to your next step of study. Thank you so much, Dr. Nuki, Executive Director of ACE. So thank you so much indeed. So hope to see you again very soon. So please stay with us. Now I can move to Mr. John now, because we heard about the case that you mentioned about Vietnam. And you may be aware that even in Thailand, we are quite aggressive in terms of scale up renewable as well. In the past, we are supposed to be the regional based practice on the renewable. But anyway, at present, the situation may be different a bit, because the situation may be different a bit because of the GDP growth, investment, or FDI situation in each country that are different from each one. So with that, Mr. John, so could you perhaps share with us, that at present the situation in Vietnam, how Vietnam can exponentially scale up the deployment of solar rooftop to fulfill its demand, and what are the key success? In terms of policy, I'd like to hear that perhaps this kind of thing, that why they can go really skyrocket within a year on the solar rooftop.
Yes, thank you. I think there are some significant successes and lessons that Vietnam can share with neighboring countries of ASEAN. Just so people understand the tremendous degree of success, if we look back just 2 years ago to July 2019, there were fewer than 10,000 rooftop solar systems in the country that had capacity of about 200 megawatt peak. By the end of 2020, there were 10 times as many systems. So from fewer than 10,000 to 100,000. And the total capacity was 9,280 megawatt peak. So there was just tremendous growth in a very short period of time. And I think there were 4 factors that contributed to that success. And I think each of these factors is quite transferable to other countries. So the first has to do with policy, which is a key theme of this webinar. Vietnam successfully set a long-term vision, establishing the policy framework for market development. So this came in a set of decisions issued by the government, by the Prime Minister, that set forth a very clear supporting mechanism for promotion of solar power projects, and specifically the solar rooftop market. Vietnam then accompanied the clear policy with good financial incentives. So this began with the first feed-in tariff program at a quite attractive rate of 9.35 US cents per kilowatt hour. That was for systems that could come into operation by the end of June 2019. And then Vietnam released a second FIT program specifically for solar rooftop projects for systems that could come into operation by the end of December 2020 at a somewhat lower rate of 8.38 cents per kilowatt hour. So these were financially attractive rates and successfully attracted a fair amount of investment. The third factor was flexible program design that looked at different operational barriers and came up with solutions. So during the design of the FIT program, there were a number of barriers, and these were identified and addressed. And then finally, there was very close collaboration among the stakeholders and an effective solar rooftop promotion program. So the 4 factors, again, it was good policy, good financial mechanisms, identification and mitigation of barriers, and promotion. So I think those are really 4 factors.
Great. So you mean maybe because they open up more for private sector investment, right? As you mentioned about the DPPA, maybe one of the factor that boosts up, you know, the situation to create more buffer, right? I mean, in terms of renewable. So it's interesting to know.
Yes, DPPA is coming soon, and that will apply to the large-scale systems, and that will complement the success on the smaller-scale rooftop.
Are they aware, like, you know, what we are aware as well, that perhaps if you use more renewable, you can come up with kind of duck curve? Maybe not, but in Thailand, we are aware of that. I think Dr. Nitas knows this very well. We have a duck curve phenomenon. So maybe interesting to know that as well. Okay, I think I may move on because I cannot go second round now. So each one I go for 2 questions at least. So with that, you know, Mr. John, you know, in terms of the wind and solar, in solar, of course, it's gonna be combined with energy storage, right, in the package, so that they can competitive with fossil fuel, something like that. So what you know, with that, I think that it might be interesting to know the solar and wind with storage backup in Vietnam. So what incentive or regulation that can be used to support integration of battery, you know, in Vietnam, if they have to couple with the battery at the same time? Can you answer this shortly, maybe 1 minute?
Yeah, sure. So in Vietnam, these mechanisms are under consideration, and Vietnam is also complementing the technological situation by looking at changes in power system market operations to improve the flexibility and operation to better integrate variable sources. So they're looking both at the technology solutions and at how to operate a country's power system, just like Thailand and other countries are also doing.
Okay, I think this kind of similar thing that we try to do. Anyway, thank you so much for that. I think we're gonna, you know, looking forward to see the progress of Vietnam further. At the same time, in many countries in ASEAN also try to boost up the use of solar as well. So thank you so much, Mr. John. So let me move to Dr. Supachri and Professor Robert. Dr. Supachri, kap.
Okay.
Okay, I think you already clarified quite clearly in your presentation. There are some questions for you from the audience as well on the biomass use, on the deforestation, and on the you know, the EV. Anyway, so in your opinion, you know, from what you present to us in terms of biomass utilization, do you think that there's still some more challenge to be encountered, or do you think that are you quite okay with the current situation, how to move biomass utilization in Thailand's countries now? Are you happy with that?
You mean energy mix to process the electricity, right? Or
something like that, or biomass utilization? How well the current situation would be?
Okay, for biomass in Thailand, we have a lot of abundant. After the agricultural farmer, how to say, collect the product already, it have some agricultural residue, so that we have abundant biomass to feed to produce electricity. However, I still concerned about how to collect it properly, because for each area it's quite different. In the central and the northeast of Thailand have a potential, for example, rice store and some rice hook, and in the south part of south part of Thailand, we have empty palm oil bunch, how to move together. That is one thing about the collection. And another one thing is for design, we have to concern about the moisture content and temperature. We have to bring the heat out that is used energy as well to make it properly to feed to the electricity. And another one thing that I think is important as well is heating value. For each plant or each biomass have a various heating value, how they can how they can produce energy. We have to calculate, and when decide to feeding the raw material in the factory, is high. Is different kind of biomass type or biomass plant. So that in this point about engineering design. And another design, the government should have like a gift intensive or funding to help the also farmer and also the factory to produce in this point to generate electricity, and have like an expert to suggest in this as well. This is the main thing that I think. And for EV, it also can generate from PV, solar, and also wind as well. If we can combine this and mix into the grid network, that is definitely is useful for us in the future. Because for each of them is renewable energy and can reduce fossil fuel and can build up the employment and also income in the next future. So that we have agriculture area, we have biomass. This is different from the EU and UK. We have a potential to bring all of things together, but it depends on the design and funding to support as well. How this is very, very challenging for Thailand to energy transition in the next future, because electricity is quite clean, we know that, but how to bring the farmer, how to bring the grassroots people to motivate and give more educate and design of things together, and definitely is difficult, but we are in a challenging time, and I think it would be great if we can do that as well. I think so.
Thank you very much. I think that's
and
a question. That's one question for you. That's one question from the floor. They mentioned about the biomass use. You know, they say that how to make sure that biomass will not come from the deforested wood. Deforested wood. You understand? How to make sure that it will not come from deforested wood. It means you cut the wood. Is the deforestation problem? That is one point.
We use the. I think. For deforestation, we can it depend on another sector as well. For example, the land department have to like register for the farmer. This area is the own area, not deforestation, or this is the own area. Register with the government, that it can tag with the farmer and also that own area indeed. Something like that.
Okay, you mean by zoning, right? By zoning.
Yes.
By zoning. Okay, great. My last question for you now is on the BCG, because as you know that the BCG or the biocircular green economy model going to be the principal direction that Thailand will announce next year during the APEC chairmanship. This is the strategy of Thailand they're going to announce to the 21 countries of the APEC. So with that, is that part of the PDP 2018 or not, the BCG model? And how is successful now so far on the BCG model activities under your responsibility?
As I know, I have get involved with national development and with the partnership of agricultural country that we bond with Thailand and develop BCG together. However, for this main structure is depend on higher education and science and innovation ministry. We have a one sector of energy section because they have a lot of sector to get involved with, and we would like to drive in this as well because we are agricultural area, so that we have a potential to use the waste from the production. For example, not only biomass but biogas from the wastewater treatment, and can generate energy or electricity. In addition, with another thing, for example, waste to energy, wood chip, and also the agricultural residue, we can decide and set the vision and target and go together with another country. And for internal in Thailand, we should set the structure and plan for each of department and get involved with this. Okay. For AEDP plan in 2018, they have some project to set already, but as a part of that, we can join or can develop the project or some activity to get involved with and pull together and collect, and after that evaluate. That is one of a part of Thailand project activity to show off and to be the championship in the future, and we can create the production more. For example, not only the for energy, but also another product. For example, the pharmaceutical, the supplement, and the oil and grease that I present for.
Thank you so much. So Ministry of Energy is very big part of the package, right? On
yes.
The BCP.
Yes.
So let's hear the progress perhaps very soon when we propose this idea to the APEC during Thailand Chairmanship. Thank you very much.
Both clean energy and bio-circular economy as well. I think
good
so.
job. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Dr. O. Thank you. Dr. Robert, for you, I think you have a good wisdom on how to utilize the pragmatic renewable technologies, toward the carbon neutrality. There's no doubt. So I just have a question maybe from the floor as well for you, because you mentioned about the progress of the EV policy in Europe to ask a bit this morning. So my question to you is that, is there EV and charging station standard exist in Europe or not? And could you share your view, on how to harmonize and develop regional standard that reflect national context on EV?
Right, yes. There aren't some standardizations yet on EV charging, for example. There's been a recent analysis of this in one of the online journals, actually, just a couple of months ago. And that was, I've got it here somewhere. The World Electrical Vehicle Journal has a good paper on this. But there's about, I think there's 4 different charging standards for electric vehicles that are used, across Europe, and I certainly think that standardization is needed, but there's always a problem that if governments bring in standardization too early, it stifles innovation and development, and if they bring it in too late, then there's already established differences, and actually determining when standardization should be brought in is quite a difficult political and technological decision to make. But some of the differences aren't huge, in that there are charging points being installed at the moment that are able to cope with the different types of charging in electrical vehicles.
Okay, thank you very much. That is interesting. I think standardization is one of the most difficult when we try to do is like harmonization in the region, even EE standard, thing like that. But I think this one is quite, we have to keep an eye on. I think you're right. Standardization is really the driver of the success of the EV standard. You're going to have a big problem when you operate it in the kind of practical term. So my last point also for you is that if EV alive perfectly, or one day it's alive fully, so what will be the future of the flexi fuel vehicle, the FFV vehicle industry using biofuel?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think there's, well, I think that one of the things that is talked about across Europe and certainly in the UK is this drive towards electrical vehicles, but essentially this is considering almost only cars, so personal transport rather than larger truck transport. And there is scope depending on the region and the type of transport infrastructure for mixed fuel vehicles, which can move from one fuel to another. So you could have large trucks which are using a biodiesel fuel on the highway and then switch to electrical drive when they get to the cities. And this will enable them to use the infrastructure of the cities and also reduce the potential pollution. And so I think there is considerable future for mixed fuel vehicles across a wider area. So I'm sure that if you think of the distances that have to be traversed in some countries, then it's going to be difficult to have solely electrical vehicles for that, unless we go, the ideal electrical vehicle, I suppose, for long distance is a train.
Exactly. So. Yeah, I agree with you. I think the flexible fuel vehicle should be part of the game from now still, even though EV try to come and take part. But I think that because of the agricultural product that we already have a long-term plan on that and community flexibility, thing like that. So I think that is an issue that we have to looking forward to see how they move. But anyway, EV is coming soon, but that's for sure. According to the current situation, EV is coming very soon. Let's see what happens as long as we use the clean electricity. Thank you very much, Professor Robert. Now I turn to Mr. Scott Bartos. There's some question on Indian case. Maybe you can mention more on Indian case that you just mentioned. But my question to you is that from now, I understand that the ASEAN and USAID attempt and effort try to help this region is really come in the concrete manner more and more toward clean energies. So maybe you can convince us again how ASEAN initiative can contribute to this region in terms of how we can reach the net zero. One more time from your wisdom, Mr. Scott.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you again for the good question and the opportunity to share a little more information. So USAID, just to maybe further explain, we have a number of bilateral mission offices in countries around the region, such as the Vietnam mission, where John and the team is working there, Indonesia, Laos, Philippines, etc. And then my office in Bangkok is the regional office covering all of Southeast Asia. And we're always looking to learn from those experiences on the ground in country, as well as provide tools and information that can benefit the entire region. It may be taken up by some of the the bilateral programs as well.
Mm.
I quickly introduced in my slides kind of some of the ways that we do work with our partners, and it's at different levels, from identifying policy or regulatory barriers or obstacles, such as the work John's doing in Vietnam on a direct power purchase agreement. So
Yes.
Likewise, looking at the opportunity to advise or inform the development of new technology standards. I also introduced some of the recent work we've done here in Thailand on the battery energy storage systems. Again, we're continuing that, expanding on that conversation to support work on EVs, both the vehicles themselves, as well as the charging infrastructure and charging technologies. Beyond that, we also have support available on technology-specific needs. We're starting a new program where we will work with partners such as EGAT, for example, partners who want to deploy, perhaps it's a new technology to this region. USAID, together with, again, one of our key partners is the National Renewable Energy Lab out of the US. We are setting up a program to help demonstrate and validate the performance of these technologies with specific partners. Again, a good example would be EGAT, would be an excellent partner with whom we could work to investigate the cost and the operation, the benefits of some of these newer technologies. This, for example, we might be looking at a utility scale battery energy storage system. And that kind of links me a little bit to when I shared the work from India. I was showing there, that's a model of kind of looking at the current system and India's objectives for 2022 to fully ramp up 160 gigawatts of solar and wind. And the model is informing us that that's possible given the current system design. As we were going through the session this morning, I started to think about, it would be interesting to kind of build on that model and perhaps introduce a battery system in key locations on that system. And how would that, what would be the cost and benefit of adding some of these new technological solutions? Those are just, again, so from whether it's policies, technologies, and I failed to mention even specific projects. One of the projects that we supported was a wonderful collaboration between BGRIM Power of Thailand, who wanted to open up some of those new renewable energy projects in Vietnam. And our team here out of Bangkok, together with the team there in Vietnam, kind of brought together a partnership that helped BGRIM Power to build one of the first and largest solar farms there in Vietnam. That's going back a couple of years. But our team is available to work across these different levels of assistance as asked, as invited by our partners, whether that's a government or a company.
Very good. That is a good model. You can extend the model to other countries, so that we can learn the success of Indian case anyway. So thank you so much. So we're looking forward for our continued cooperation with USAID. Please come up anytime. I think ASEAN welcome you. Anyway, you can help Dr. Nuki on the AEO next version, right? Because you mentioned about NREL, right?
Yes.
NREL. I think Dr. Nuki is quite happy to work with you on the next, edition of the ASEAN Renewable Energy Outlook in the near future.
We've been very pleased to work together with ACE on the AIMS work, and we're actually have an ongoing conversation about expanding upon this cooperation. So we look forward to that as well. Thank you.
We do. Thank you very much indeed, Dr. Scott. Thank you so much. Now, let me move to Dr. Nithat Kap. So I think you have very clearly explained and show the success of the APG. Actually, it's quite progressive, Professor Nithat Kap. So maybe you can share a bit more on the main enabler or the factor that pushing how to propel the regional energy grid toward the decarbonization, and also if you talk about the power trade, cross-border power trade, or renewable power trade. So what about the cost competitive issue that perhaps we come across? You can share with us, Professor Nithat Kap.
Thank you, Dr. Virawat. So, as I mentioned in my presentation, that the interconnection between countries actually we can develop by the project that we can have the cost and benefit and on that project. So, for example, for the foreign IPP in Laos to Thai, we can build the interconnections, and that is the one kind. What I would say is that we cannot build the interconnection if we cannot find the benefit on the interconnection. So to make to support the interconnection between countries, we need a good business model to answer the feasibility study in terms of the benefit and the cost. If we can have the power trade, so we can give the benefit to that interconnection. For example, we have the project. We have the project which is in the study to sell electricity to Cambodia, and also we have the another project to sell electricity to Myanmar. Actually, the cost of or the technical for the interconnection is not quite the big issue. The big issue is the tariff of electricity that we have to sell, and the other country they wish to buy. That is the key issue. Since we know that the renewable energy trend to be the lowest price for the energy and low investment cost for the renewable energy, I think we can catch that opportunity if we install the renewable energy, such as the solar cell in many countries, and then we have the excess energy during the daytime, and if we can store that energy and to for example, the energy storage or the hydro pump storage or whatever means of the storage that we have exist in the system, and then we can utilize that energy instead of the curtain of the solar energy, and then we can make that benefit. So that is the one project that we looking for the study, and we have some project with the US and NREL for the utilization of the energy storage in the system, and we think that we can use the energy storage instead of N-1 criteria. For example, if we have the line to some local area or the neighboring countries, we have to build the double line, and we can carry power only half during the normal operations to prevent the N-1. For example, if one line is tripping, and then all the energy will transfer to another line at the 100%. Instead of we build the two lines, it would be good if we can install the battery storage at the receiving end, and then we can carry power at the full 100% of the line. If we can make sure that we can recover the line within, for example, 10 or 15 minutes, and then the energy storage and that technology and also the RE can help us to make the interconnection between country to country more feasible. That is the one idea that we try to study, and we ask for the many experts such as NREL to help us to study on that. So you can see that the new the electricity and the power grid now has been changed or transformed because of the new technology such as RE that will more competitive with the conventional power plant,
Exactly.
and also the digital technology,
Yes.
and also the energy storage technology that come into our system, actually to the every country system. So I can see that is the great opportunity for all the ASEAN country to apply the new technology into our grid and make interconnection or APG to make it happen. So that is my view for the interconnection and the new technology on the renewable energy and energy storage. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you so much. I think the digitalization is the issue now, right? And virtual power plant should be the future. So with that, very clear that we all have faced, when integrating the renewable into the grid. So all countries had a similar problem, right? I think we can solve together in terms of the regional cooperation. My last question to Dr. Nitat Krab is, because we heard about Thailand, announcing to be the regional energy connector, right? With the goal to become like power trading hub for ASEAN. So since IGAT play a very crucial role, and IGAT for all, the theme that come up this day. So can you share IGAT the strategy how to achieve this goal in terms of, let's say, infrastructure or in terms of investment to become hub?
Thank you very much. Thank you for mentioning that IGAT for all. When we say for all, it's not only Thais, it's for all the ASEAN country and all the people.
Yes.
So we wish to support the renewable energies, and we wish to support the ASEAN power grid, and as Thailand acts as the energy hub. Because of for the existing today, we have the interconnection line between neighboring countries, such as the RAW PDR. We have a 115 kV line, 230 kV line, and 100 kV line for and we have a DC link between Thailand and Malaysia, and we have the projects to the even it is on the study to Cambodia and Myanmar. So you can see that we wish to support the ASEAN to make the interconnection and ASEAN power grid for the benefit of the ASEAN country and individual ASEAN state benefit. So as you know that if we have the interconnection line, we can utilize the interconnection in terms of the security and reserve sharing. Even when we integrate the renewable energy into into the system of each country, for security reason, if you have to install you must install the energy storage to prevent the interruption of the power system in the event that you have the depression and no sunlight for a long time, and then to relaxing of the energy, you can use the interconnection line and the platform of the market to buy energy from other countries.
Yes.
And then instead of the install a huge of utility scale of energy storage, which is today is a very high cost. So in the future, if you have the energy when the energy storage is price going down, and then you can install that more and more, and
that's true.
That is the benefit of the interconnection, and we have the goal to support the ASEAN power grid, and also we have the goal to support the carbon neutrality. So that is the reason. So Thailand have many projects to support that idea.
So thank you, Kap. I think it's quite convinced that Thailand will be definitely the connecting hub, because our location in the middle of the region and with the infrastructure, right? I think the kind of thing like this can propel our intention to be the hub very soon. So thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
I have only, thank you so much, Krab. I have only perhaps 5 minutes or so that I have to move on a bit more. Mr. Jason, I think your presentation is very clear now. And many people support from the question from the floor, like home solar, home battery, and EV. Maybe you can say only one word or a few words that I think digitalization also play a role, right, to make this kind of thing happen in Australia, right? Digitalization, and maybe a bit costly, but I think it should be smooth the process, isn't it?
Yeah, I think the important thing with digitalization is that it allows say you've got rooftop solar, you've got all these houses with generating power. And so in times of a high solar generation, suddenly the demand for the traditional baseload power drops dramatically, and that can lead to destabilization.
Yep.
And so by using digitalization to enable all these individual houses or power plants to talk to one another, then they can be turned on and turned off, or the power can be redirected where it needs to go to help manage these demands and peaks and troughs to prevent destabilization in the network.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I think the technology is right now is user friendly now. Everybody can access to a technology very easily. That is the key. So with that, I'd like to hear more in the future, on this kind of thing that the farmer try to do. The last 2 minutes, Dr. Bandit, I think the thing that we have discussed, from this morning up to now, cannot be successful without research and development. So how can you say a few words how academia can propel R&D toward decarbonization or in terms of capacity building of the student? อาจารย์ครับเชิญครับอาจารย์บัณฑิตครับ
Can you hear me? Can you hear me now?
Please, yeah. You have.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. To put your question in perspective, for energy transition to succeed, power system you have to integrate more and more RE, particularly VRE. And to do this while ensuring reliable, efficient, and affordable energy service, the system must have more flexibility, which requires the use of flexibility resources as well as transformation enabling technologies. Now, depending on the share of RE in the power grid, different technical and contractual flexibilities can be deployed. For example, up to 15% of share of VRE, conventional power plant flexibility through the ramping of natural gas and hydropower plants can be used. And if we go for more renewables, flexible power plants, pump storage, and battery sources can be economically viable options. All these options are commercially available or close to commercial. In terms of R&D, they may require some demonstration, test bedding, or modeling on simulation studies to assess their technical as well as economic impact before full deployment. For enabling technologies such as battery storage, whether to engage in R&D will depend on each country's innovation strategy. In fact, IRENA has come up with a very pragmatic renewable energy technology innovation policy process development guide for developing countries. For example, if your country has essential materials resource for battery, such as lithium or cobalt, and want to engage in battery manufacturing, investing in materials and manufacturing R&D may be worthwhile. In any case, demonstration and test bedding will serve to promote their widespread use. As to the question of how academic institutions can play a role, well, I think as we accelerate energy transition, a lack of skilled workforce risk creating bottlenecks in the rollout of clean technology. So investment in skills is key to realizing the transition. But the key issue is the lack of information on areas of skills needs, the level and quantity needed. In countries with strong central government planning like Singapore, this may not be a problem. Otherwise, a triple helix model, as you have suggested, could work very well. For example, in the area of power systems, Global Power System Transformation Consortium was launched recently, led by the world's leading system operators and supported by international agencies like the IEA, IRENA, ACE, the World Bank, ADB, and USAID, etc. The consortium engages key power system operators, research and education institutions, government, business, and stakeholders in all regions of the world to work together in capacity building and defining research agenda by consensus and much more. I think a similar kind of setup or model can be established at the national level as well as regional level, like ASEAN. I hope our Executive Director, Dr. Niuki, agrees. That's my take. Thank you.
I believe so. That was very, very informative, very comprehensive, Dr. Bandit. I think the research institute should be the big enabler, for the success of sustainability and build up the people. Otherwise, only technology will not prevail, right? So I think your wisdom is really foresightful for all of us now, and to end this kind of today meeting. So with that, national energy data should be the issue. I think I'm gonna leave the issue to Dr. Pachali. Remember, you have to create the National Energy Data Center very quickly now. I think they are in the pipeline under the Apple. So with that, I think we come to the last minute already. So I'd like to thank all the speakers, honorable speakers from across the world to join this important forum under the GIGC and KMUD. I think today could be fruitful, more or less, if you can listen throughout the session. You can learn a lot of issues, a lot of things that perhaps we can foresee in the future from national to regional, like ACE activity. With that, my last point is that the key issue to move this kind of thing is not only on security, it's not only on sustainability, but it also affordability. That is the key issue that Dr. Nitas already mentioned. The cost benefit should be part of it. At what cost? So I believe that the cost of renewable, particularly either biomass or solar or wind, are expected to continuing decline and become competitive with fossil-based power at the end. So with that, please join us to give a big applause to all our speakers. I'd like to give a big applause to all of you. And that concludes the panel discussion. Thank you very much. And back to Professor Sunirat. Thank you. Thank you all.
Hi, everybody. It's been a wonderful almost 3 hours of excellent presentation. So my task now is just to give you some key takeaways. So may I share my screen? I won't take long, even though this is a summary for the 3 hours. First we start with the APAEC, the ASEAN Plan of Action for Energy Cooperation, which is the key of today as well. So according to the plan, the ASEAN committed to 23% IE share in the energy use and also 35% in power by 2025. So this will need the ASEAN collaboration, and we have heard on the ASEAN interconnection and smart grid. So this will enable the high share of variable renewable energy and to achieve the ASEAN renewable energy target. as well as the long-term decarbonization. So we have heard of some challenging issues in Vietnam in renewable energy investing. So the DPPA could accelerate the renewable energy investment opportunities. So this helped to achieve the sustainability commitment as well. And we have heard on the international collaboration and R&D, which include the impacts of electric vehicles and biofuels, and also how we can make the 100% renewable energy achievement in manufacturing industry. But for the bioenergy, we have heard about the socio-economic and sustainability issues. What is the benefit to the stakeholders, and what is the sustainable issues of the supply chain, like we have heard about the import of wood pellets from country and used in another country. And then we have learned more about the USAID collaboration in the region to decarbonize and achieve more resilient and secure Southeast Asia. So some of the projects include the battery energy storage systems, electric vehicle, and then again on the ASEAN smart power grid. So this requires the three pillars of the fully integrated infrastructure, the trading mechanism, and the regional system generation and planning. But this also, there's some pending issues on the cost and security. So with digitalization, the solar battery systems and vehicle to grid can enable the home sufficiency and self-sufficiency and grid stabilization. And the government incentives can help accelerating this take-up. And lastly, the renewable energy deployment needs the technology innovation, the local development, and capacity building. But the path to carbon neutrality must consider not only technology and environment impact, but also the cost. So this end of my presentation of the key takeaways. So once again, thank you for all the speakers, the moderators, and all the audience. So I look forward to the continuing and new collaboration and partnership. So now I would like to pass on the microphone to Kun Pran.
Okay, so thank you very much for all the speakers in this session, and also thank you for JGC for organizing such a very informative and great discussion between the speakers. So for the JGC, JGC will be having the conference as well at the ASEAN Sustainable Energy Week during 14 to 16 of October. So the topic will be the International Conference on Clean Energy Transitions for Post-COVID Resilience in ASEAN. So if you would like to have information on that, we will put on the link so you can follow the page of ASEAN Sustainable Energy Week with the more of the update news. So without any further delay, I would like to move the floor to the technical presentations about the solar distribution role in Thailand, Renewable, by our co-sponsor, Bewari. I want to introduce Mr. Junrei Castro, the Director of Trade for Southeast Asia, Bewari. Good afternoon, Mr. Junrei. So the floor is yours.
Thank you, Kunpan. Thank you, everybody, and good afternoon. I have 15 minutes, so I would make use of it right away. So let me just share my screen. I hope you can see my screen now. So let me start by saying thank you.
Mr. Junrei, we still don't see your screen yet.
Sorry, let me just see what's happening.
Okay, that's perfect.
Okay. Hold on.
So we already share your screen, so you may
Okay.
start
Sorry.
your presentation.
Can you see my screen?
Not yet. Our team will share the screen for you. Yeah, we started already.
Okay, good. So let me start on the first page. I wanted to present how this solar distribution contributes to the role of the solar industry growth in Thailand. And in fact, it's not just Thailand, but it is also a concept that applies to other countries as well. And I'm glad to have this session because it seems like a conclusion of all the different technology and discussion we had earlier as well from different speakers. So let me move to the next slide. There are 3 topics I wanted to discuss. First is the technology trend within PV. It's just an overview of what has been discussed earlier as well. Second is how this technology impacts the industry and how do we bring this technology to the consumer, to the end user. So that's a 3 topic, and let me start with the first one. Is the slide moving or seems frozen at my side?
It's not moving.
Okay, let me, yeah, so there's,
It's okay now. Okay now.
okay, sorry about that. So yeah, the first topic is the PV technology trends, an overview of where we are in terms of technology and what has happened over the past. A lot of the people here are pioneers in the solar industry, has been with us for quite some time. And maybe it's good to kind of put a throwback of the technology movement over the past few years. So on the next slide, first I wanted to start with the solar cell technology. You know, for those guys who has been in the solar industry, you probably started with technology of solar cell starting from, I don't know, maybe 250 microns thickness of wafer to where we are now, reaching 180, 160, even 100 microns. And the area of the cell has also increased significantly over the past few years. That is all with a target to increase the capture of energy, capture of sunlight, and convert that to energy. So that change has resulted to increase in one cell efficiency, also resulted to increase in terms of power of the modules. When I started in solar, the power of the module that I first ever installed was, I think, 200 watts, and that was like 10 years ago. And if you look at the power capacity of the modules we are working on now, we are even reaching 540, 550, and soon to 600 watts per panel. This also shows you how technology is driving the LCOE. And this also opens up to certain challenges along the way, because if you look at the module dimension, the module sizes has increased in dimension. That means integration towards mounting structure, towards installation also becomes a challenge. But all these are good because this helps us reduce LCOE. And then maybe I move to the next slide and I talk about another change which we have seen, from 600 volts to 1000 volts. And during the transition, people were saying 1000 volts is not safe. And now we're in a 1500 volt system. The voltage of the system has also increased. Together with that, the requirement for BOS components to adapt to the voltage requirement is also increasing, including adoption of inverters, of other components that goes together with the system. On the right-hand side, you'd also see that the mounting structure has evolved over the past few years. from just being a simple fixed tilt mounting structure to becoming tracker to having different mounting capabilities to optimize installation. Again, this drives LCOE to go down. So it's not just the mounting structure and the equipments, but also the application has changed over the past few years. You would hear a lot about floating solar application, and governments are putting more incentives on this. Becomes a very lucrative application that solar could look into in the future. And on the right-hand side, there's a lot of discussion about agricultural PV installation as well. So it's not just the equipment, it's not just the technology within the equipment, but the application of solar installation seems to be growing. And on the inverter technology, there's a lot of discussion about module level power electronics as the installation grow, and as we grow installation in terms of CNI and residential application, safety becomes a key requirement. So the demand for having safety modular power electronics becomes high over the past few years, and also the government and even the electrical codes within each country is evolving to adapt to this growth in terms of solar and renewable energy. And then of course inverter from the previous inverter technology, which is just being simple power conversion equipment, there has been a lot of changes and technology advancement as well on the inverter side. One, to being able to adopt digital integration, to be able to diagnose and do monitoring by themselves. The inverter technology has also changed a lot, which again enables us to be cost competitive. And as the panelist has also discussed earlier, a lot of discussion about energy storage, about how do we adopt policy towards energy storage, about EV charging. So if you look at all these changes, it happened over the span of 10 years, and this is still continuing. The technology advancement within solar is rapidly growing, which helps us to become an industry where resilience is there and improvements and advancement is key for us to grow. These are all good. Of course, technology advancements are good, but however, this also impacts the installers, the market that we are operating in. And how does this technology impact the market? First, if you look at the slide, the first impact is supply chain is not as easy as before. There are more options. It's more complicated in terms of logistics, in terms of which supplier to work with, which technology to work with. Supply chain becomes more complex, and this, of course, is something that the installers and the EPC, the developers, has to adopt. Second is the design integration becomes very complex. The module sizes, for example, increases, it becomes larger. The mounting structure has to adapt. The module suppliers delivers 1,500 volt technology. The inverters has to adopt. So the design in integration also becomes complex because the solution is changing differently in a different time frame as well. So the integration becomes complex for installers. Second is you look at the old installations that was completed. What happens to those old products? You wouldn't find any 200 watt modules or the old technology inverters. And that becomes obsolete. What do we do with those old installations? What happens to those warranties? That's a bigger question that we have to also consider along this technology transition that we are experiencing. Second is, as the new technology ramps up, there are, of course, questions in terms of quality. There are any defects that we don't see. The warranty that applies to this, how does that impact financing? As the technology is also growing, cost is not yet stable. We're still advancing towards that. Also, the impact of pandemic becomes a concern in terms of cost, and that, as what we could see now, is a great concern for most projects. Also, the engineers, what we have classically known as solar design may not be the same as solar design with the latest technology. So the understanding and the trainings for the engineers on the EPC side, on the installer side, also has to be updated. The business model has also changed and has to be adopted. The traditional solar always talks about FIT. With all this coming EV, battery storage, and the policy changes, the business model needs to adopt. How do we make it work? Technology is good, but how does that commercially work towards the end consumer? And another last point is the buying structure within the solar industry has also to be adopted. If you look at other regions like Europe, like US, the distribution business for solar has been key for them to really grow distributed generation. In Southeast Asia, we're still very much on the mindset that we have to procure directly with suppliers. That has to change because over the pandemic period, we've also seen the downfall of relying too much directly on one source. And I think having local distributors to support the growth and to make sure that the technology you buy and procure works is key for us to grow in the industry. And that brings me to the last point. How do we bridge all this technology, this advancement that we have towards the consumers? I'll skip this. In BayWa, we are a company who has long history in terms of working in solar and renewable, and we have different businesses that operates within the solar industry. First is projects, operations, and solutions. I'll dwell more in details in terms of solutions and how do we bridge this technology towards the consumer. So we act as a distributor. We supply equipment to our customers, which are mainly EPCs and installers. What we do is we bring access to technology to them. We bring the latest products to the market so that they can take advantage of it. We also make sure that we support innovation towards our customers, that they are able to take the benefit of the technology that we are bringing. We are a full solution provider. We wanted to make sure that we provide what the installers need to grow their business, to not focus too much on the supply chain issues, but focus more on building more power plants. Second is we value quality so much, and this is key for us because as a local distributor, what the value we could bring to the end users is you have another local guy to support you in terms of warranty issues, in terms of any technical support, and which that brings me to the customer proactive support that we bring to the market. We have local guys in each country to support the needs of each customer. And most importantly, BayWa brings a financial capability, a stability that then ensures the customers that you are dealing with someone financially stable. We're not here for the short term, we're here for the long term. And that's key for all businesses to succeed moving forward. We are present in almost all continents in the world. Our regional hub in APAC is in Bangkok, in Thailand. We have operations in Australia, in Philippines, in Vietnam, and also in other parts of Southeast Asia. We bring experience. We wanted to bring our global expertise with a local touch in each country where we are present. In 2020, we sold more than 1.2 gigawatts of modules purely on the distribution side and close to 2 gigawatts of inverters globally, which again highlights the capability of the company. This is our office in Bangkok. We have warehouses as well in Bangkok, both general warehouse within Thailand and similar approach that we're doing in other countries like Vietnam and Philippines. That's basically ending my 15-minute time slot. Our key goal is to really bring technology access to the market. As BayWa, that's what we wanted to happen, is to enable our customers to build more power plants and bring the benefit of the solar technology to them. And if you have any questions, happy to answer. Otherwise, feel free to contact me for any requirements or support you need, both in Thailand and also in other countries. Thank you.
Okay, so thank you very much from Sir Jure from Dewari. So the morning session is about to end. So as I mentioned at the beginning, this session is powered by the ASEAN Sustainable Energy Week, which will be organized during 14 to 16 of October in Bangkok, Thailand. So coming up to this afternoon, we are having more of the webinars coming up and waiting for you. We're starting from 1:30 p.m. Bangkok time. We start to have like the Indonesia Nusantara Renewable Grid, HVDC undersea cables, and then followed by the investment opportunity in renewable solar industry outlook in Malaysia. And the last one will be the ASEAN bioenergy. So if you would like to connect with our exhibitors and including the Brewery and our sponsor, FEMA, so here is the, we have the marketplace for you. So do not miss a chance to visit our marketplace. So exclusive only today and tomorrow that you will be able to connect with more than 250 companies at our marketplace by using the video call and chat functions. So don't forget to visit the marketplace so you can connect with the exhibitors and learn more about their products. Okay, including the brewery also there as well. So at last, I would like to thank you everyone for joining this morning session. So stay tuned for this afternoon session. Thank you.